Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And my name is Jonathan Rajala, and I'm the Strategic Account Executive for the Nordic region here at Shipeo, and I will be your host for today. Just a little bit of information before we get started. All participants are on mute, and if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A tab in your control panel, and then I will bring them up at the end of the presentation. And to answer a quite common question already now, you will receive both a recording and the slides from today's webinar afterwards. So today we are going to talk about transportation visibility, why transportation visibility is critical for your supply chain, and how to choose the right visibility partner. Our presenters for today are Rudy Bartels. Rudy is the Director of Central Supply Chain at Sappi Europe, where he is leading the S&OP process, service and inventory management, and heading up digital supply chain initiatives for Europe. Rudy has 25 years of experience at Sappi and in all the areas of supply chain at plant and head office level. Welcome, Rudy. And Dennis van Bodegom. Dennis is the Director of Northern Europe at Shipeo. Dennis has more than 25 years of experience at enterprise software companies. Previous to joining Shipeo, he was the Global Accounts Director at Infor, where he successfully helped international companies accelerate the digital transformation. Welcome, Dennis. So, without further ado, let's walk through the agenda for today's webinar. Just to provide some quick background and context, Sappi and Shipeo partnered up for a transportation visibility project, and this is why we decided to host this joint webinar together to share some key findings and lessons learned. During this webinar, we will learn why real-time transportation visibility is important, the key recommendations when choosing the best provider for your unique needs, and why Sappi chose to implement real-time transportation visibility and why it is critical to their long-term vision. So before handing it over to the presenters, I wanted to provide a bit of a background and context for why real-time transportation visibility is important. To describe the underlying need for transportation visibility, we like to use this statement that a B2B customer is like a B2C consumer driven by an urgent need for more service. As a private consumer, you're receiving a high level of service, knowing the status of your order, where it is, when it will arrive, and so forth. I'm sure most of you are knowledgeable and familiar with the Amazon way, as they call it, which had spread all across the B2C segment. This, of course, creates expectations, which are then brought along by the B2C consumers to the professional space. But the B2B world is quite far behind on this topic. It lacks the same degree of service and real-time information. Of course, B2B is a more complex and diversified world, but the lack of service and real-time information is also much more costly in this space. Transportation can often be described as a black hole where the information and data about where a delivery is, when it will arrive, and anticipated delays are either non-existing or available much too late when the information isn't relevant anymore. Our goal and vision with real-time transportation visibility is not only to catch up with the B2C world, but provide a higher level of service, real-time information, and data within the B2B space. And why is it then costly to have a supply chain without visibility for your company? On top of having unhappy customers due to the low level of service, some other pain points are slow resolutions of litigations and penalties. With data being available hours, days, or weeks after, this becomes a time-consuming and costly process. Inefficient warehouse operations due to delays. If you can't anticipate or be informed about delays, you can't take the actions needed to optimize your operations, or the teams waiting to unload a delivery, which then turns out to be delayed. Loss of productivity for transport and customer service teams. Instead of focusing on more critical tasks, a lot of time is spent on manual exchange, mainly through emails and phone calls to locate the latest status and information about deliveries. Poor optimization of transportation costs. If you don't have reliable or accurate data to measure and analyze, it is very hard to optimize these costs. Costly stockouts and production line halts, which are then, of course, caused by missing or delayed products or components and having no information or predictability around this. And the last part, no visibility on carriers' performance and OTIF. If you can't measure your carriers, you can't know who is performing well, who is not, and where are your actions needed. I'm sure many of you can recognize yourself in at least some of these pain points, and this is why real-time transportation visibility is here to help. So if we go to the next slide here, of course, one part is getting into real-time visibility. The next step is then, of course, choosing the right visibility provider. To help out with this, Shipeo has created a visibility guide. This visibility guide includes 14 recommendations before choosing a visibility provider. This guide is designed for both shippers and 3 and 4PLs. It includes best practices, red flags, and checklists. During today's webinar, we will cover and highlight the 6 key recommendations. If you wish to read the full report, you can download it under the Handouts tab in your control panel. And with this, I would like to hand it over to Dennis.
Thank you, Jonathan. So let's review the first out of the 6 recommendations for today. So these you can find back, as Jonathan indicated, in the report that you can download. And the first one we would like to highlight is the coverage and the different geographies that a vendor can cover, especially in the difference between the Americas and Europe. There's quite some significant differences in the market. If we take a look at the American market, we'll find that there is a very large number of really large freight forwarders that cover the majority of the market. You'll find most of the transportation going A to B, and not as in Europe, especially complex LTL, where you find cross docks, groupage, etc., and multiple customers being loaded on the same truck. Whereas in the US primarily, you'll find more FTLs dedicated for one customer. Another difference between the regions could be in the capacity of the trucking companies. You'll find that 50% of the capacity in Europe is made up of medium to large carriers in Europe, while most of the capacity in the US is made up of small carriers with less than 5 trucks. So there's quite a difference in the way that things are organized. Also, if we take a look at the way integrations are being made in the US compared to Europe, you'll find that less integrations give you access to a lot of volume in the US, while in Europe you'll find there's a lot more. It's a lot more fragmented market, as you can imagine, with subcontracting being quite common in Europe, but also restrictions and compliancy with regards to data privacy and other compliancy regulations. Another thing which is often overlooked is the differences in languages and culture. You can imagine if carriers are being onboarded for your company in Portugal, in Poland, in Russia, in Finland, in France or the UK. I mean, the differences in language and culture should be taken into account, which is obviously a lot easier in the US. And then there's the different systems that we have in Europe. We'll find more than 400 systems just focused on telematics compared to close to 100 in the US. So in terms of approaching a market, a US vendor may not be the right vendor for the European market, while vice versa, there might be a good fit for the US market. So it might be difficult for a vendor to cover all regions at once. Europe is clearly like 24 countries rather than 1 or 2 countries, and especially the data privacy agreement and the regulations in Europe are quite strict and particular to our European market. So that's one of the things to look out for and understand the differences in the market here. As a second recommendation, it would be good to take a look at the different modes of transportation. When we talk about real-time visibility, the first line of thought might be the road transportation. And indeed, this is about 70%, almost 80% of the European market is transported by road. You'll find most of the complexities there. We talked about full truckloads and less than truckloads. But aside the road transportation, you may have a need for maritime, for parcel, for rail perhaps, and especially on the LTL side, there might be a level of granularity you need in order to track the goods that are in transit. Think about a warehouse or a retail operation that would like to understand where exactly the pallet has been left in the transit of goods. So the ability to be able to track on barcode level or SSCC level, container level, pallet level, would be one of the areas to check for in order to make sure that all the modules and the modes that are needed are supported by the vendor. A third recommendation to look for is the way to get access to the information. It would be really good to have alerts and notification about unexpected occurrences in the transportation. But just getting alerts and knowing that something will be in time, too late or too early, is very limited in terms of understanding the real impact and analyze the impact in the long term for your business. So we would recommend to look for a vendor that gives you the possibility to analyze the data in details through dashboards and insights, but also gives you the ability to log into their portal, look at the data, and see your own data in a way that you would expect it to see. Which means that you would see as a shipper, only see the data that you would be allowed to see as a shipper, but also as a carrier would see its own data for the different different shippers that he is servicing. So there would be one login for both the shipper and the carrier to look at the data, analyze the data. And the good thing is that they're all sharing one version of the truth. So everybody will be looking at the same analysis of the data. So both the in-time reports, the OTIF reports, waiting times, etc., are all the same and alike across the platform for all the users to look at. A fourth one to look at, and in the recommendations, is one on integration. And we believe this is something that is very often underestimated or misunderstood, because the word being connected can mean many, many things. You can imagine that there is a carrier company with a very limited IT capabilities, which may not even have their trucks equipped with telematics or a live GPS system. If that's the case, the only way to connect a carrier would be by handing them a smartphone or using the app on the smartphone, allowing the smartphone to serve as a GPS device, which is the very basic and entry-level way of tracking a transportation. Ideally, the truck has telematics, which means that the onboard system in the truck has a GPS system and records where the truck goes. And this telematic system allows us to tap into the information, find the GPS coordinates of this truck in a near real time, which means typically between 1 and 5 minutes, there's an update being sent by the truck and we know where the truck is. Now, this is considered a connection. So whether it's a smartphone or a telematics connection, this is typically found as the most common level of connecting with a carrier. However, if you need more details, or your business is quite dynamic, where you can envision that a truck is being swapped at the last moment in order to pull the trailer to the next location, just having the telematics is not enough, because you will need to know which truck is pulling the trailer that is being transported. So having integrations to a TMS system and eventually through an API or a full TMS integration makes a big difference. And the difference that we've highlighted here between a TMS connection, basically sending information to a TMS, like order information and getting event updates back, might be a basic start to get back office information from the carrier and from the shipper. However, if we want to continue and get more granularity, especially when we look at parcels or last mile delivery, we would need a full real-time bi-directional connection with the back office of the carrier and the shipper in order to make sure that we get the level of detail needed to provide that granularity. And that especially goes if we want to get into the details of groupage and cross docks on the LTL level, where a full TMS integration is considered a bidirectional real-time integration, which means if there's any changes made by the carrier in their TMS system, the visibility platform is instantly updated and all the changes will automatically ripple through to all the details of the platform. So please be aware of the 5 levels of integration and make sure to ask what the connection exactly means when you're discussing this with the vendor. The other side of connecting carriers is not just the technical side. So you see here the tip of the iceberg on top, where typically a technical connection is considered the connection with the carrier. And in fact, this is the most easy part to connect with the carrier. It's not just the technical side, it's a lot of things which are less obvious for the outside observant that is very relevant for a successful onboarding. So before a carrier is onboarded, typically there might be questions about how is my data being used? Where is my data being used? Who can see my data? What is the vendor, the real-time visibility vendor, going to do with our data? Is our data safe? Where is it being stored? Who has access to it? Will it be sold to somebody else? And obviously when a carrier is sharing their data, they are sharing the heart and soul of their business. So making sure that that data is safe, protected, but continuously owned by the carrier and under their control to decide whether that data is being shared or not is a key element in making sure that the carrier feels comfortable sharing the data with a shipper and with the platform. So it's not just the data protection laws and the GDPR that we know here in Europe. It's in general making sure that there is a solid contract in place with every carrier, making sure that they are in control of the data that they share. It can't be that we just open up and access the data of a carrier as a real-time visibility vendor. We open up the data for the carrier and we pull all the data to our platform. If that would be the case, we would be violating the data protection and GDPR laws. So every carrier is in control to say, we want to share the data with this specific shipper, or we don't want to share this data with this specific shipper, and they are in control to give access or not. So this is one of the key elements to make sure that also the carrier base feels comfortable and gets benefit out of working with the real-time visibility platform. And then the last recommendation is related to the accuracy of the predictions. It's great to have visibility on what's happening, but the visibility should be real-time, and ideally it should be predictive, which means that based on information that we're gathering over time, think about historical patterns which are unique to the shipper and the carrier, or unique to the lanes that are being driven every day. Those patterns can be reused to predict what's going to happen next if a certain lane is being driven again. So those patterns will be very specific to the shipper and the carrier executing the orders, which can help predict what the ETA is going to be. And in this ETA are a lot of elements which are not automatically incorporated if you use generic API-fed ETAs. So the ETA stands for estimated time of arrival. And typically, if you would just go to, let's say, Google Maps, and you would ask for a ETA on a certain route, the deviation between the accuracy and the predicted could be very big. We've seen examples of more than 16 hours difference being off by 12 hours. So if, as you can see in this chart, if it's not accurate and you can't predict in time, especially a number of hours beforehand, it's becoming very difficult to increase the productivity of your teams and of your organization. And especially when you get closer to the delivery stage or delivery point, you can imagine the accuracy is increasing. But the longer beforehand, it becomes more and more complex predicting a highly accurate ETA. So making sure that this ETA is taken into account, the data science and machine learning capabilities that are available today on the market, to make sure that those ETAs are accurate and specific for you as a shipper and a carrier, is one of the things to look out for. Another interesting thing actually with the ETA is the ability to cleanse the data. You can imagine that if a GPS signal is sent or received and sent back to the platform, the question is whether the GPS coordinate is accurate, especially in high density locations like cities. The GPS coordinate might be off because of reflection and mirroring effects in the city. We've seen various examples of a truck being stationed at the port in Rotterdam, and then suddenly sending a signal somewhere out of Africa. If you would leave those GPS points in your calculation, you get highly inaccurate calculations. So it's adamant that we cleanse the data and we make sure that the data that's being used is very clean and ready to be used for ETA calculations. This concludes the 6 main recommendations in our in this presentation. I kindly invite you to download the white paper in the handout section, where you find more details and more recommendations in our white paper. Before we move to the next stage, we'd like to do a quick poll, and we ask you to submit your answer based on this poll. And we give you a minute to read it through and think about it. So the question is, which visibility challenge is critical for your organization? One of the answers you can select is managing the complexities of operating across different geographies. So the geographies are expected to be the most complex. Or tracking your preferred modes of transportation, which could be maritime, roads, parcel, LTL, rail, etc. Getting insights into your transportation KPIs. Or advanced system integrations. Is it enough to have just telematics integration, or would you expect more sophisticated integrations in order to be effective? Or would it be the quality of the onboarding of your carriers? And last but not least, the accuracy and reliability of the ETA. Please submit your answers and we'll review what it's the poll. While the answers are coming in, I'm just looking at the, I think everybody has voted. Interesting to see, but there's still a few people answering here. So the one that's really topping out is the accuracy and reliability of the ETA, with about 35% of the respondents have indicated that the ETA is one of the most important elements, critical elements for the visibility challenge. The other one would be getting insights into your transportation KPIs. That's very interesting, as we have seen in our in the projects that we've deployed, that the insights indeed in transportation visibility give a host of information, allowing to tweak and tune the operations in order to better meet the previously set KPIs of the company. A good third together is option A and B, which is managing the complexity of the operation across the different geographies and tracking your preferred modes of transportation. I think now altogether the results have come in altogether, clearly indicating that the ETA is one of the most important elements. Interesting. Let's move on to the next stage. Quick reminder to download the handout and the white paper in the handout section where you can find it. Then I would like to give it to Ruben Buckles.
Well, thank you, Dennis, and also for me, welcome everybody to this webinar. And so I'm going to talk a bit about the project that we are doing at the moment within SAPI Europe on real-time visibility. And maybe to start off with, I've seen looking at the poll and the accuracy of the ETA calculation. That was also for us the most important element, and you will see that in the next couple of slides why that is important and what our customers expect from us. Maybe quickly an introduction at what we do at SAPI. So it's a bit of a busy slide, but I thought I gave you as much information as possible on one page. So we're a South African-based company globally. And in Europe, we have about 4 million tons of paper capacity and 1.1 tons of pulp capacity, which is basically fully used as a raw material for our paper production. We have 10 mills in Europe and 14 sales offices. And we have distribution centers all over Europe. At our products, so printing papers, that's probably the most obvious one, together with packaging and specialty paper. So the magazines, the folders, the flyers, very much advertising related, and then packaging, of course, all kinds of packaging at the high end. Another one that all know, but you don't know where it comes from, is the dissolving wood pulp, where we are quite big in the world with 1.4 million tons. Which is mostly used to produce viscose fiber and is used in the fashion industry. And then we're also starting up and developing new biomaterials and focusing on bioenergy. So as a company and as a market, if we go to the next slide, so what are we facing as a challenge? And so we do, if you look at the typical paper part of our business, there is an increasing overcapacity. Everybody is moving into digital solutions, and that is hurting us quite a bit. And it's also making us go into different types of products, and especially packaging is as a growing business, is also one of our focus areas. But this overcapacity also makes us focus on cost reduction, both us and our customers. And we live in a B2B world, but also our customers are facing the same overcapacity and need to cut their costs wherever possible. And there also the increased digitization comes in. And I think Jonathan has also mentioned the Amazon effect, where everybody wants to see at every time their status of the order, and that's also our customers. It's the same thing. They're getting more demanding, and that's where the supply chain challenge comes in. And I like to call this the magic supply chain triangle. We need to deliver more service with less cost and lower capital. And so faster delivery times, increased service requirements, whatever they may be, vendor managed inventories, all kinds of consignment stocks, more transparency, proactive, predictive information. That's what customers expect from us. But at the same time, we need to do this with lower costs in warehousing, in transport, in admin, and with lower inventories. Especially now, of course, capital is very scarce. But that, I believe, goes for all companies at the moment. But still, we always have to focus on making our stock turns as high as possible, and reducing waste in the supply chain wherever that is possible. So then going, and I will get to the point where we started off the pilot and the project together with Scipio. But a couple of years ago, and also coming out of these changes that were taking place in our market, we started actually by building a digital supply chain strategy. And we started off by setting a vision, and which is we want to be a sustainable and cost-efficient supply chain that manages end-to-end flows, requiring very little intervention. And well, I suppose everybody wants to have a supply chain like that. And we've defined 5 pillars on which we base this strategy, and that is operating sustainably, and especially as we are a company that uses natural resources, it is very important for us to do that in a very sustainable way. Increasing customer focus, that's another pillar. Improving internal efficiency. We need to look at the costs, create full visibility, and support margin growth wherever that is possible. And you're thinking more on the procurement area. Now, these are the pillars and the strategy that we use to also validate each project that we're doing, and also where we want to make our investment. And then if we then move on, we got to this point where we had basically a big workshop with our sales leadership, where we were going through that strategy and through the list of projects that we had listed, and then one point came up as what is our biggest problem at the moment, and there we said, well, actually 50% of all the questions that arrive at our customer service desk are, where is my paper? And that's also where the project that I will talk about now in the next slides has started. So since then we've started to build a platform, and that platform is called Paperini. And Paperini is basically a finish for my paper. And it is a platform where we put all the customer information, planning information coming from suppliers, mill internal statuses, internal transportation, the last leg to the customer, ocean shipments, and inventory. So we bring all that information on one platform, and we build technology on top of that platform where we basically use it to share data with our customers, to put on dashboards, to build AI, and other automation principles. And then we actually, when we're talking about real-time visibility, we're talking about, at the moment for us, at the last leg. And that takes us to the next slide, and also to the project that we're currently running. And here, so you see it on this slide. So what is most important for us is predicting the truck ETA at the customer. So actually, I can tell you a story about the French market, but it could also be another market, and where we get the typical question that a sales rep gets at, and in this case it was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, the customer called, and it's a printer, and he was waiting for his paper pallets to put on their presses in the afternoon, and where they called us and said, well, where's my paper? And because the truck's supposed to arrive at 12 o'clock in the morning, or before 12 o'clock, and it was not there at 1. And then the whole charade starts. So the customer service rep has to call our forwarding agent and ask the same question. Then they need to contact their subcontracted carrier, and the carrier needs to contact the truck driver, and then the day is gone before we get an answer. And it's probably, and we had the cases, we had a complaint filed, an official complaint filed in our system by the customer already before we got the answer on actually where the truck was. So that's a typical problem we have, and we see in all of our European markets. So we need to know when the truck arrives, and then especially we need to get an early warning in case of a delay, because basically it's not so interesting. And Dennis has mentioned it. And every 1 or 5 minutes you get an update of where the vehicle is. But what is more importantly is that in time we get a warning of if there is a delay, compared to the planned arrival time. And that's something that that we now get. But well, if the truck always calculates at every position that it is, it calculates what is my ETA and what is my plan. And as soon as it damages that plan, then it turns red. Now I've just put in a screen shot of a map with some with colors on it, and the red truck would be the one that would be arriving late. And so it would be very easy to zoom in on that truck and to see what's going on. At the same time, of course, it would our customer service desk would get a message that this truck is actually in danger of arriving late. And in the case that I just mentioned, then we could inform the customer and tell them that the truck will not arrive at 12, but it will arrive at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And out of surveys, we've learned that that is not a problem at all. If we inform the customer in time of a late delivery, then they can change their plans. And in our case, that would be change the plan for their printing presses, and they would not wait for our goods, but they would just take another order first, and then reschedule our order for 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So, and most of the time that works. So real-time carrier performance is another important one, because for the same market and the carriers that are serving that market, we've seen that they're well, let's say they need to feed in their data into our system when they actually did deliver, but we noticed that was not totally reliable, and because we had evidence that we had late deliveries, but in our system with the manual input from the carrier, the truck was in time. So all of that is gone now, and now we have real-time performance measurement. Improved efficiency, that's then the part where we don't have to call, or we don't need to be called, because we call the customer, and we don't need to take that whole track of calling our forwarders. And most of the time, because the answer is waiting, is not being given immediately. So in most of the time, we also call internal logistics departments. The inventory manager is called. So lots of people are called, and they're all looking at the same problem. So there's a lot of efficiency that can be improved. And then data analytics. So once we have all that data, we can also analyze it. And just as a small example, what we already found in our pilot market is that quite some of our delivery addresses are not correct. And well, with the help of Shipio, then we find that out, so that the address where the delivery is supposed to take place. So then it actually shows up that the truck didn't deliver at that location, but it delivered a couple of kilometers down the road, and that puts us in the opportunity to look at those data and to correct them in our system. And the same would go for lead times, because that's another very important one. So all of our, I mean, we have a massive, probably everybody has a massive set of master data, and it's quite difficult to validate if they're still correct after a couple of years, because you have duplicates, you have errors, you have all kinds of rubbish in the master data. And this gives us now the ability to compare the real lead times with the lead times that are in the system. And by doing that, we can reduce or look at inventory reordering points, etc., or speed of delivery that we can increase because we have the real facts now. So that's it, and basically in a nutshell, what we expect out of the real-time visibility for the last leg. Now we've also looked at the number of companies when we made a selection and when we started off this project, and so what I try to do here is to list the reasons or the things that we were looking for our solution and that would fit to our business. One thing that is really important is that so we are a company that work with many forwarding agents. So and most of these the majority of these forwarding agents works with subcontracted carriers. So in total, we're talking about three. If you really look at the majority of let's say the 80%, then we're talking about 300 different parties. And what we've seen is that many of those carriers, they have very nice solutions. We've seen in our pilot some of those providers who have very nice solutions. But the problem is that we cannot connect to 300 different parties. That is way too complicated. So we were looking for one platform that helped us connect to all those different carriers and forwarding agents. So that was a big one. Then Dennis presented it as well. So it seems that, and I still say in this slide, it seems, but because we still also have to validate how good it really is. But we had also at the very beginning a very good feeling about the algorithm of Shipio and the way the ETA was calculated. And also at one of their customer days, they presented, or somebody presented the algorithm and the machine learning that they have put in, and that is also one of the other points, collaborative. So I think Shipio is very open about what they're doing and are willing also to share data with other platforms. And we've seen that it's not the case with all the providers. So that was also for us very important, because we don't care where the data comes from, as long as we can process it. And if we can share it with other parties, then we can all benefit from that. Well, the real-time insights in the carrier performance. So the insights was really good. It's not the biggest point. So the points I just mentioned, those were the most important ones. But the other topics are really nice or nice features that we got on top of what we actually wanted, and which is also the complete functionality of the tool, and which is basically the whole transport, order management, the tracking, the ETA calculation, the insights, the connection to also the app that is available, and so it's basically all included in the package. Now, what I missed, because I talked about what is most important. So maybe one I missed is the carrier onboarding approach and flexibility. So here we've seen a lot of flexibility, and in onboarding and connecting to TMS systems, to carriers directly, to GPS systems. So that was also that's also very that works very well, and they're also very flexible on that. So that was also a big plus. One thing we learned in the implementation is that GDPR is a big thing. It's well, it is very important, and Dennis has mentioned it as well, and it's all covered, but it's I believe it's also very much used as an excuse by carriers to not want to share data, and that is one of the challenges that we're having, is to really get these carriers onboarded, and GDPR is one of the elements that is used, and we also spend quite some energy on both from our side, sharing the message with the carriers, and from Shipio with the documents that need to be signed on keeping the data safe. So then going to the final slide, and why real-time visibility is contributing to our strategy and our vision in general, and also will help us in going through these changes that we see in the market, and because it does add customer value. We've seen it in every survey that we did with our customers. This is a very important point, and it is perceived as high value. The administrative administrative process and the efficiency improvement, it fits nicely with the cost reduction and the cost focus that we need to have. The delivery performance, and especially focusing on the real performance, so that takes away a lot of discussions. And then the real-time carrier performance measurement. We do have carrier performance measurement, but this provides us a new level of detail. So at the moment we're not done with this because we're still in the pilot project where we're now ramping up. Our goal is to achieve 80% visibility of our last leg deliveries over the whole of Europe. And that's what we want to offer as a service to our customers. And our plan is to now roll this out in the next 1.5 years. So that would be it from my side. So thanks for listening. And then hand it over back to Jonathan or Dennis.
Thank you, Rudy, and thank you, Dennis. So thank you to both of you for those very, very interesting presentations. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. So once again, a quick reminder, if you have any questions to Dennis or Rudy, please be sure to type them in your Q&A tab in your control panel. We have quite a lot of questions coming in already, so we'll try to take them as we go. So let's see here, the first question that we have: how do you think that the transportation landscape and challenges differ within pulp and paper and other industries? So I will direct this question to you, Rudy. Seems relevant.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're that much different from other B2B industries. For sure, there's the difference with the B2C business, where the Amazon example is quite different, and the whole packaging service or deliveries are quite different to what we do. And where it seems to be, and that's what's in people's minds, it's so easy because you get a package and you know where it is and when it will be delivered, and you get a status update. So what we are facing is we're delivering both full truckloads with big volumes to big customers, and at the same time we're delivering partial truckloads with our paper on it, and also other products that are delivered to other customers, other industries even. Groupage, cross-docking, multimodal deliveries, wagon deliveries. So those are, I believe, the real challenges in getting this visibility thing right. If it's kind of full truckloads, one leg full truckloads, I think that's quite easy, with few carriers. But as soon as it gets more complicated, then it becomes also a lot more difficult to get the visibility right.
Thank you. Dennis, anything to add on the specific challenges when it comes to pulp and paper or other industries? I mean, Shipeo works with clients in several different industries. So any short findings you can share here with the audience?
Yeah, I think in general there's a lot of commonalities. As where transportation is strategic, you'll find many similar requirements, but there's obviously characteristic differences. Think about densely populated delivery areas. So if you need to deliver in the downtown Bonn or Paris or one of the capital cities, is quite a different ball game than delivering to the outskirts of a city in general industry. So retail may face different challenges when it comes to calculating ETAs in big cities. But you may also think about fresh food or automotive having very different KPIs when it comes to just-in-time or penalties that may apply. So we see differences in the surrounding characteristics and the KPIs, but the underlying functionality is very much alike. So I think the business on the pulp and paper industry definitely has a lot of things in common with other business-to-business industries.
Yeah. Let's move on with another quite interesting question here, which I think feels relevant for today's webinar. What is the difference between a TMS and real-time transportation visibility? So I'll shoot this over to you, Dennis.
Yeah, TMS stands for Transportation Management System, and Real-Time Visibility Platform obviously is exactly what that does. The difference between a TMS and an RTV platform, TMS is actually optimizing and planning the routes and the execution. So it's creating the schedules, it's optimizing the resources and taking in consideration the constraints. The real-time visibility platform adds on top of that what's actually happening. So it's monitoring what's happening rather than optimizing and taking all sorts of constraints into account, aside calculating the ETA. So a real-time visibility platform shows you what's happening. The TMS is planning what should be happening. So the RTV platform is helping you to monitor if the baseline of the TMS system is actually accurate and what's happening in real time today. So gives you a good comparison against planned and actuals.
Thank you. We have a question to Rudy here. Customer value in transportation visibility and accurate ETAs. Have you been able to cash in that value somehow with your end customers?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, it depends on what you mean with, or what do you expect from cashing in. But basically people are not willing to pay for this, but they do see it as very important. And what we notice in our surveys is that we get a higher score if we get this right with our customers. So I don't know if I'm exactly now answering your question, but it does help us, and it goes with the customer focused pillar of our strategy. It does help us to attach our customers better to us. It doesn't give us a higher price, but it gives us a better value. It can help us in lowering our complaints cost, and you know, with every complaint that you get, you need another multiple of good orders to get rid of that bad experience. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Rudy. Dennis, we have two questions here tied to carriers. So I will group them together for you, and so you can answer both of them. The first question is, do you use the telematics system of the carrier, or do you use a tracker on your shipment? And tied to the same carrier topic, we have a question, how long time will it take for you to onboard a new forwarded agent or carrier?
Yeah, quite common and good questions. We typically use, if we can use telematics, we will use telematics because it's the baseline to start tracking the transportation. And this telematics can be enriched with other information. Could be a phone, so a mobile app, which enriches data with photos, sign on glass, etc. Ability to scan barcodes, etc. So we could add the mobile application on top of telematics, plus we could add information from the TMS system, back office systems, warehouse management systems, etc. So telematics typically is the minimum integration we would prefer to see. And on top of that, you can use trackers to track very specifically specific goods or trailers or something else. But sometimes those trackers might be somewhat expensive, might be cumbersome to send them back and get them recharged, etc. So we do see them used as a complementary capability to track, but it's not too common yet. And there's other ways to track, for instance, your pallets and your containers by the SSCC tracking, which means that we use, and I saw one of the questions on the LTL as well, how do we measure the ETAs? It's basically on the same level. We track the goods based on their logistical unit level and follow it through the supply chain. Now the question is how long does it take before we onboard a carrier? Well, you saw the iceberg before in the presentation. So connecting the carrier itself is a matter of hours, typically. The technical connection doesn't take long. A TMS connection, especially if we do a full bidirectional real-time TMS integration, it takes longer, obviously, because that's a personalized integration that we do specifically catered and customized to that specific carrier, which always takes more time. So you should think in weeks, but if we connect telematics, that could be a matter of hours. So it really depends on the level of sophistication. So you remember the 5 steps of integration. Depending on the level of integration, the integration is either very short or a little bit longer. But please do take into account that before we onboard and integrate with a carrier, we always ask their permission. And if they decide to leave that answer on their desk for a week, obviously the integration takes a week longer. So there's a few processes behind that may affect the onboarding time. But technically, it can be done really fast.
Great. We are running out of time, but let's try to squeeze in some quick questions. Rudy, one for you. Is the investment done solely by SAPI or shared with carriers?
So the goal is that we carry the investment cost, and that's also the way Shipio puts their pricing model. And that's also the way we decided we want to move forward, because it's we want to have this. We want to get the data, and we don't want an excuse of a cost for a carrier as a reason not to do it or not to get integrated. On the other hand, the carrier will, if there's a connection to a DMS system, there are IT related costs, which the carrier then carries himself. But they also mostly see the benefits of that in their own system and their connection to us.
Thank you, Dennis. Anything you want to add on this topic?
Yeah, important question. But as Rudy says, so we want to be transparent on the cost. We never charge a carrier. So if a shipper comes to us, so we want to onboard and using Shipio, the invoices will go to the shipper, never to the carrier. So for the carrier, they onboard for free and look and access the same data. So you're always looking at the same version of the truth, where the carrier has all the benefits without having the charges.
Great. Let's take one final question. What types of transportation modes and flows do you track/support? So Rudy, we could start with you for this one.
Well, the main focus for us is on trucks at the moment, but we did also agree now to start to kick off a pilot in rail for our internal transportation from our mills to our distribution centers. So that will also be interesting, because that's a quite well, if even in Europe, rail is not always as reliable. So there we also see some benefits, and so that's something we kicked off. And then ocean freight is another one where we want to look at as a next phase.
Thank you, Dennis. Do you want to add something from Shipio's capabilities when it comes to flows, modes?
Yeah. Well, Rudy mentioned already a few that we support, so short sea, deep sea, container status updates in the terminals, in the ports, so knowing when a container is discharged, when it has arrived, when it's ready for pickup, etc. So container, ocean tracking, road, FTL, LTL. Indeed multimodal, so even if a shipment to the customer is going through rail and ferry, etc., to the end destination, so multimode tracking of goods and products. We mentioned rail. Parcels is another one, which can be very large volumes, and then indeed the LTL with the tracking through the crossdocks on product or logistical unit level is the other one. So basically all modes of transportation that are supported. Yeah.
Thank you. We still have quite a lot of questions coming in, but as we have about 30 seconds left of this webinar, we will have to pause that section for now. Everyone who attended, please feel free to reach out to Shipeo, Tusapi, and so forth will be happy to answer the questions we didn't have time to cover today. Dennis or Rudy, is there anything else you would like to say as a final words before we wrap things up?
Well, not from my side. Just to thank everybody for joining this webinar.
Yes, same for me. Pleasure to speak. Looking forward to speaking to the people that are on the webinar. Feel free to reach out through LinkedIn or directly. Dennis.vanbodegom@shipeo.com, and happy to accommodate any questions you may have. Looking forward to be in touch. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you taking your time and being here. Like I said, you will receive the recording and the slides shortly after this session. So thanks again for joining us today, and have a great day.